Welcome to Sexuality Sunday with Soul Strippers. We're going to be talking about low sex drive and what happens in our relationships when we start out with loving and caring and tenderness and being attracted to each other, and how these things change over time. What's going on with this so that we can move into sacred relationships with each other. So, what's going on? We start getting triggered by each other, and we lose the newness of everything when you're figuring out who each other are and all the exciting things that you're doing that you plan together, and then it becomes the humdrum day-to-day life. And in this humdrum day-to-day life are keys to our own wounds, traumas, imbalances, and different inner core issues. So now we're locked into the relationship because it was in the beginning, this magical experience, but now we're getting triggered by them all the time. So what happens here is we have this energetic body, and inside of it are all kinds of these charges. So a positive attitude could attract a negative attitude, or in these examples, I feel worthless attracts someone that says you are worthless. It's not like this in the beginning, mind you. In the beginning, things are meshing and going beautifully. A pushover will attract someone very pushy. So now you have cornered yourself with the bully, and you get to see something you hate about yourself every single day as they bully you. Cannot receive attract someone who cannot give. The self-absorbed attract the selfless. And as we have these and see them as positive and negative charges, it creates like a magnet that lock people together. But we have to be tricked into doing soul work. We have to be tricked into this in order to work on ourselves, because nobody just signs up to the soulmate relationship to have all your inner traumas revealed. We don't do it that way. And God, the universe, whoever you call the creator, knew this. He knew we needed these euphoric feelings and loving bonds in order to work out our inner issues and have this sort of loving feelings going on. Even if there are rubs, the love overpowers the rubs. But the rubs get more powerful, and the loving feelings wear off, as now living in the ego, we are sort of desensitized to being together. It's not magical anymore, or there's not this sort of one person trying to oppress the other or things like that. So then you get to the pain of love. And the cure for pain is in the pain. These pains you feel are messengers. Listen to them. Most of you know Rumi. He's amazing. So tracing the pain. Your relationship is a reflection into your soul. Once you get through this love, euphoric feelings and get to the heart and core of the inner issues, start tracing the negative emotions. These can help us clearly define where our inner work has to be done. And until these negative and positive charges balance out to where you are in balance and harmony within yourself, you cannot help but attract that opposite match in order to pound that into you. So this is like where we see a lot of people in repeat patterns. So they leave one partner that they're unhappy with, and here comes the next partner that's almost exactly like the first one. And everybody else can see it, but they're lost in this love, euphoric feelings, and they're blind to it. But they need to be in the repeat pattern so they can get the messages. And you can't just untrap yourself from this without doing soul work. There's no pill for this. You know, if you have a low libido or some kind of low sex drive, it's not like there's a magic cure except for working on yourself. So if you've locked yourself in with someone who's very pushy and you're a pushover until you start standing up for yourself, then you're going to have these negative feelings and emotions. And you're going to want to blame, finger point, and do all the things our egos love to do rather than working on our trauma. And soulmates can also provide us with our failed spiritual tests. So we're going to get into this in another week. But there's a lot of things that I don't hear healers talking about with spiritual tests and how our soulmates actually mirror where we've failed these things. So we're falling into envy or jealousy or insecurity because now the partner where you had this magic lock bond to is being triggered by you and you're being triggered by them. So you look outside the relationship and see people outside of you, or your partner does, and start flirting with someone else. All these interplays of jealousy and insecurity and wanting to have that one perfect soulmate. But until we get through all these things in our own inner work, we can't have someone who is loyal to us if we aren't loyal to our inner selves. We can't have someone who unconditionally loves us until we unconditionally love ourselves. And that's what we start doing in order to figure out what's going on with ourselves. If we want to have sacred relationships, wonderful sex lives with our soulmate twin flame partner, these are the things that we have to do so that we can attract back to us what we are instead of our imbalances and unhealed wounds and repeat patterns and failed spiritual tests, and the list can go on and on. So you're the project. You know, your negative emotions and your partner mirror some ways that you're imbalanced. And until you unlock these imbalances, you cannot get into that relationship with someone because the energy is not there. The positive and negative charges don't match up. So a lot of times people will be in relationships and be like, I don't even know why I'm with this person, but you can't leave. Well, it's because you have energy lockings that work perfectly. So our capacity for loving other people depends on our capacity for loving ourselves. Where we get triggered by other people, any negative emotions are really not about them. It's them triggering something in ourselves that we don't like about ourselves. So that is the superpower. You know, you see a lot of people and spiritualists especially talking about things like remote viewing and astral projection and all these superpowers. Those are not superpowers. The superpower is being in your body on this earth and doing what you're supposed to do here. Balancing out your faults, your imperfections, forgiving yourself for the ways that you're wrong, or the things that you've decided you reject about you. Those repeat patterns, the karma you've created. If you can unlock your karma, then if every single person unlocks their karma, then we can move out of the need for karma because we're complete compassion. And that's where we're coming to with this new step in evolution. Self-abuse patterns can stop, the dysfunctional belief systems. It's going to be a wonderful time period to be alive. So let's get to the heart of how these energy imbalances affect each other and lock us together, and this exchange that goes on between one another that creates the relationship. It can be imbalances. So overly generous people meet and get attracted to someone who's a total tightwad. You're like, oh my gosh, this person's making me crazy on both sides. But what's happening is that if the overly generous person becomes balanced and giving and receiving, then the bonds won't match anymore. If the tightwad, who probably lives in scarcity, and it's really not, it's their fault, but it's not their fault, because perhaps that they've lived in scarcity for so long or so many lifetimes that it's just so difficult to not penny pinch. So when these two balance each other out, then those positive and negative charges don't match anymore. You don't need that person to say, you have an imbalance here. And if you hold hate and resentment for that person, these are the spiritual tests I'm talking about. If you hold hate and resentment for the person who is the tightwad, and they trigger you over and over and over into that, then you're not being unconditionally loving. How is your imbalance any more righteous than somebody else's imbalance? When really all it is these two people are working together to reflect back to each other something they need to work on. So lack of sensitivity attracts the overly sensitive. So if you've got someone who just hurts their feelings every time you say boo, and then you've got someone who is out to hurt your feelings and has no compassion whatsoever, then their suffering will begin. Too strict meets someone too nice. So we need to have boundaries and set boundaries for ourselves. A lot of empaths and narcissists have this dynamic going on. Our egos, the inner liar that wants to lead us down this negative emotion trap. Wanting, needy people. Meet someone who needs to be wanted and needed. Then that person gets completely drained by the wanting, needy, because the ego is not being fed anymore, and it leads to suffering. But what they can't see is their own role in the dynamic. They feel like they have to be wanted and needed in order to be loved. It's a dysfunctional pattern. I must be a commodity to be loved. It means you're not loved if you're not a commodity. This is a lot of dynamics between the way we're taught to think about men and women and money. So men are supposed to be the providers, and women are supposed to be at home raising the children. Well, then we've got a lot of negative emotions around men feeling like they're just used for money, and women feeling like that they're used because if they're not sexual and raising the kids and revolving their role around everyone else, the resentment builds. So if you think about this in terms of internal issues, you can start to dissect things and see, what is this about that is happening in me this person is triggering? Also, things like our fears. If you value outside resources as your source of security, like money, you will attract the soulmate who will go after all your money. It's a fear. You have that fear inside of you. The universe is just bringing it back to you. So you will no longer place your security in something outside of yourself. So if we start taking this list, seeing where people mirror us, our imbalances, our karma, our egos, and ripping it apart, then we can get to the heart and soul of ourselves. And these are just examples. These are just things to start you on your path to thinking about, what's the soulmate relationship hitting? And how have I lost these loving feelings and sexual attraction because my inner wounds are getting triggered? Because when you balance, heal, and evolve, then you opened all that energy back up. People aren't triggering you anymore. And this is a great place to see that unlocking love and creating sacred relationships is an inner journey using outside messengers. So we've got to have these outside people and different games and relationships and tools in order to see the inside of us. And that's where we get to sacred relationships, having wonderful love lives and sex lives. is by balancing, healing our trauma, stepping up to our failed spiritual test, and moving fully into spirit. This is the wave and enlightenment that is happening, and how people are going to start co-creating in new ways. So if you feel like you don't understand why you have a low sex drive or low libido, you're doing exactly what you need to do. You are investigating what's happening. Don't take a pill for it. Don't do anything that uses an outside source besides what's going on in your relationship to help you heal, evolve, and become whole. You can find me and my website at www.soulstrippers.com. I've got an online course coming January of 2020, and you can get a 20% coupon if you sign up online for my email list, where you'll be notified of new blog posts, YouTubes, and tons of free resources so that we can get to this new place and new dynamics in our relationships with each other and learn what we're supposed to know to move into new earth. I'm a Reiki Master Therapist, also a Master Spiritual Healer. I do past life regressions, and you can find me right now working out of Tucson, Arizona. So if you're anywhere in that area and would like to get a past life regression, let me know. Or if you would like to do a healing session over Zoom or Skype, that's a great option for long distance people. So thanks for watching, and I hope you have a great Sunday.